We're going to be going through extreme pain and suffering through a number of challenges for a very good reason.
My hand's going numb.
The first person to press this button loses, and whoever has the most points at the end wins. Like this breath hold, none of these challenges are going to be easy, and we're going to push ourselves to incredible lengths. And on top of that, it's going to keep getting harder and harder. And pay attention, because we designed these challenges so all of them could be done at home. So you could see for yourself if you could actually beat our time. Right now, I was going strong and leading by 2 points. I wanted to see if I could win them all. Currently minus 22 with the wind chill. We're going to see how long we could last on this nail bed. Now this is where things start to get interesting. Since we only had one nail bed, while I was trying to lie down on that, Paul headed down to try a pull-up challenge that you might not have seen before. It seems really easy, just 2 pull-ups every 5 seconds, but you'll quickly find out that it gets a lot harder than you think really fast. Paul was only 30 seconds in, and I was struggling hard on the nail bed. In fact, the nails were so sharp that when you see my back when I get off, you'll realize just how hard this is. And not only that, but the temperature was so cold I could feel my skin going numb. In the pull-up challenge, Paul ended up doing just under 5 minutes, but we weren't allowed to know each other's times until after, and getting up from the nail bed was extremely painful. There were deep holes in my back, even though I'd only been on for just over 8 minutes. And with neither of us knowing each other's times at this point, it was time to switch and see who would win both of these challenges. And although both of these challenges are difficult, I promise they get worse. The tough thing about the pull-ups is that although 2 isn't hard to do at a time, doing them every 5 seconds means you get almost no rest. And considering that most US Marines can only do 23 in a row, we ended up doing pretty well. Paul finished up the nail bed with a time of 5 minutes and 34 seconds. But before I show you his back, which is arguably worse, I still needed to finish up the pull-ups. Just over 4 minutes. I bet Paul couldn't do that. And unfortunately, I got a bit too confident and Paul ended up beating me by over 40 seconds. Now it comes time for an interesting challenge. We were gonna go to an all-you-can-eat buffet and see who could spend the most money.
Ice cream. To start off, I'm starting with some dynamite rolls and some udon. This guy's trying to order ice cream to start.
It cost $35 for us to eat as much food as we possibly could. But we were gonna keep track of all the prices to see how much we would have actually ended up spending. And it started off like a regular lunch, but you'll see it got pretty competitive. We made it a rule that we had to have at least some variety. This way we couldn't just order the most expensive thing to run up the tab. We would actually have to eat a lot of food, which if you've ever tried to do this, you'll know that after a while it actually gets really difficult. However, this is where things switched around and we came up with an interesting strategy. We needed to find a food item that we could have a lot of that it wouldn't fill us up. And this is where we took advantage of the ice cream. And 20 scoops later, between the 2 of us, we finally finished. Can we get the bill, please? And with that out of the way, it was time to do some heavy lifting. For this one, we loaded up the bar with 315 pounds, and the objective was to stand there for as long as possible. Immediately, I could feel all the weight of the bar pressing down on my back. However, I managed to keep it up for 1.5 minutes, and at this point, all I could do was wait to see if Paul could beat my time. However, at this point, the only thing on my mind was the 3 final challenges that we still had to do. Right now, it was a pretty close game. I thought I'd have way more of a lead, but Paul was quickly catching up. And with an impressive time of over 2 minutes, we were now neck and neck. The next challenge was a plank, and I was terrified for the one after. But for now, I was just gonna focus on going for as long as I possibly could. I was thinking back to the days where I couldn't even do it for 1 minute at a time, and yet now I was sitting at the 5-minute mark and still going strong. And before I show you the next challenge, which involves live crickets, the reason why I wanted to make this video was to prove that more is possible when you're willing to put your mind to it. Believe it or not, Paul and I have been pushing our limits together for over 2 years, which is why for this I knew I needed to push harder than I ever had before. And doing a 10-minute plank is incredibly difficult, but this next challenge was completely new territory for me. I was not prepared in the slightest. What you're looking at right here is a bunch of crickets and other insects, and the challenge was to spend a little bit of time with them in a bag over our head. And for some reason, I was pretty terrified. There were way more than I was expecting, and the way that they were sticking in the side of the bag meant they were gonna stick that same way in our hair. I was not prepared.
Okay, Tyler, are you ready?
No, not at all.
He's ready to press the button. That's what he's ready to do.
This guy's already on the outside.
But it was time for me to face my food.
3, 2, 1, go.
Go. Over your head.
It's over my head.
Why do they gotta smell so bad, bro?
I feel them moving in my hair.
I did it, but I didn't spend too long, and with a time of just over 30 seconds, I quit.
We're chilling. They're my homies.
Do you know what the worst part about this? It's gonna give them ideas for the next video. So now being neck and neck, it was now time for the final challenge to see who would win. We set the treadmill to a pace of 8 kilometers an hour, and the last person to leave would win. I used to do a lot of running, so I was feeling fairly confident. But for the past few months, I've been focused more on strength than on cardio. So it's been a while since I've done something like this. However, I wanted to see how much I could push myself. And considering this was a faster speed than I was used to, I knew this wasn't gonna be easy. At the 52-minute mark, I could tell Paul was getting tired. And at the hour mark, the treadmill restarted, so we had to set it up again. By this point, point, we had both just run 5 miles with no breaks and it was starting to get difficult. Keeping the pace was the worst part. I knew if we slowed down the treadmill, it would be easier. But at the hour and 5-minute mark, Paul pushed the button. I had officially won the challenge and I could have stopped here, but I wanted to keep going and see how long I could run for. At the hour and 30-minute mark, my shoelace came undone, forcing me to run with it untied for half an hour straight until the treadmill restarted again. And after 2 hours, things got crazy. I felt pain in my knees and hips after every single step, but I knew if I kept going, it would be my fastest time ever for a half marathon. I needed to keep pushing to prove that more is possible than you think. And after 2 hours and 45 minutes, I had run 22 kilometers straight, over half a marathon. So what do you think? Would you try?